Hello, everybody. Hello. Life can be scary and sometimes hard. Seems like you got a winning hand and then you dealt the wrong card. It ain't fair, but you're not alone. Down and out or high and dry, in the darkest valley or the coldest night, you're fine. And you're not alone. With a song bubbling in your heart, where a story can give you a brand new start. You don't have to tackle this big bad world all on your own. No, 'cause it's better when we do it together. All mixed up and upside down, feels like there's no one else around. That ain't right. You're not alone. When it all goes south and life gets tough and you've been knocked down and the weeds are rough, you just fight. 'Cause you're not alone. With a song bubbling in your soul, where a story can make you feel whole. You don't have to travel this big bad world all on your own, 'cause it's better when we do it together. It's better when we do it together. What's up, guys? Hello, everybody. This is Kristoffer Polaha. You were watching the Polaha Chautauqua live. You might have been watching the Mystery 101 marathon happening today. I just saw somebody post that. That's crazy that I've been on a television all day. It's weird to think I'm there and I'm here and I'm here. I'm there and I'm here and I'm there. It's weird. Guys, hello. I wanted to say the Her Arts in Action auction is happening right now. I believe that Sarah has tuned in live with us, and I just want to show you guys. You have a few hours left to bid. Here's my artwork. Okay, I'm going to show you guys this. There's the details. There's the three little birds in the distance. There's the sign. And there's Jesus on the cross. You see he's been all lashed up, his eye. He's looking at you. So if you buy this thing, he's going to be looking at you. And then I wrote Jesus on the cross. It's a 1 out of 1. And you can see all the little detail work in there. And it's just simply ink on paper. And I figured that it was, I just figured it was an appropriate thing, you know, given the nature of the world that we're living in right now. And of course, showing you guys that took me off my notes page, so give me just one hot second while I get back to that. Talk amongst yourselves here for a second. There we go. So, all right, I want to do the Her Arts in Action. And you guys, if you can't donate, because I know the prices have gotten out of hand, if you can't bid because the auction, the artwork has gotten out of hand, then you can donate. And I guess you can donate to actors. And so there's a fun little harmless competition taking place on who gets what. And you would go to www.herartsinaction.org, and you would just click the appropriate links once you get in there. And there's amazing artwork from Bryce Dallas Howard, Stanek Haddock, Rainn Wilson, Shiri Appleby, Britt Robertson, Austin Basis, Reggie Austin, Mamadou Athey, Scott Hayes, Jill Wagner painted some awesome shoes, and those are selling like crazy, like hotcakes. Who am I forgetting? Did I forget anybody? Me? herartsinaction.org. There it is right there. You know what I could do is, I think I can, hold on, can I pin that? Let me see. I'm going to pin that comment right there. So you guys can just click on that and bid away. All right, guys. So today we're going to talk about grace. Oh, Jensen, of course, I forgot Jensen Ackles, who drew Batman, who is voicing Batman, which it makes that piece of artwork that he did priceless, because I happen to know that he's not just in one, but several animated features here where he stars, where he voices the Dark Knight. So that's gonna, thank you, Candace Young. That's gonna be a cool thing for somebody to own if you're, who was an artist in New York City in the 70s, has 3 beautiful silk screens that he's done. They're original work from him, and it's beautiful. And while I'm talking about things you can purchase, the store is open. You go to the link, you can open, it's in my shop on Instagram, but also on my website, www.chrispolaha, and you can go get a hat or you can get merchandise. All right, guys, it's about to get serious today. Are we ready for seriousness? I wanted to talk about grace, because last week we were doing some spring cleaning in the community, and there were all sorts of things that were happening, and it's amazing that talking about things and shining a light on things and just having a healthy, open discussion changes the dynamic entirely. And everybody involved has reached out to me, and there was a young lady and I read her letter, and I understand her heart and where she's coming from, and I think there's 2 sides to every story, and I understand that things are complicated, but it led me directly to want to talk about grace today, because without grace, the world that we are living in is impossible. But it is through God's grace and the grace that we show in one another that we can literally just get through the days. And so I just wanted to talk to you about grace, and I wanted to talk to you about what it means to be filled with grace. And in order to do that, I wanted to talk about not just what happened last week, but just what's happening in the world right now. 8 people were shot and killed in the FedEx building in Indianapolis, or Indiana, forgive me for not knowing exactly where. But there are 8 people, which means 8 families who are devastated tonight and this weekend. This is the 1-year anniversary. Let me read this to you guys. And I have terrible cell site, so if this thing keeps freezing, if I keep popping in and out, it's the website, it's my Wi-Fi. I apologize. So I got this note today. As we say our prayers for the victims of the FedEx shooting this weekend, remember the victims and the families and community, since I'm here in Canada, of Canada's worst mass shooting in our history, which occurred 1 year ago today in Portapique, Wentworth, and Debert, Nova Scotia, small villages with peaceful people. A shooter traveling dressed as an RCMP officer in a police cruiser popped off 22 innocent people, including a police officer. And so we're looking at a world that is getting darker and darker, and we're looking at the riots that are happening and the unrest and the racial tension, and all of it is beginning to feel overwhelming. I turn the news on because I'm in social quarantine up here, so I'm just by myself, and one of the things I'll do to wind down at the end of my day is just surf up the channels. And I hit CNN, and I saw Chris Cuomo, and he was talking, and he was unhinged. He was doing something, and I want to just preface this whole conversation. I'm an actor, and what I do for a living is pretend to be other people for a living. That's what I do for a living. I get a job, I read a script, I make all sorts of choices, and I'm defining who my character is going to be, much in the same way that a carpenter would look at a block of wood and design how he wants to create that cupboard or that chair. And I look at characters the same way, and I create characters that are interesting and are fascinating, and their sole purpose is to grab your attention and to hold on to you and make you like him so that you'll keep watching me. Well, guess what unions joined about 11 years ago? Mine, which is SAG, which is actors pretending to be other people, and AFTRA, which are broadcasters. Think about that for a second. The people you see on news, on Fox and CNN, they are represented by the same union that Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt and Johnny Depp and me are, SAG. And it's interesting to me because the game shifted from relaying news to grabbing a hold of your attention and not letting you go. And Chris Cuomo the other night on CNN, who I like actually, when he got COVID, I liked his temper, I liked his demeanor, I liked how he communicated all through the quarantine. But I was watching this thing and I didn't like it because he was talking about all of the things that were happening in the race situation and the race, and he was basically calling for armed militia. Like, it was really subtle and it was really interesting, but he was saying, nothing's going to change until there's an armed militia, and until there's an armed militia, and then all these things are going to start changing. And maybe he's right, but the call to that is scary. And then I flipped it, literally. The next thing I did was flip it up to Fox. And there was some guy on Fox who's also in the SAG-AFTRA union, holding on to his job, clamoring to get your attention and hold on to it forever. And he was talking about how everybody from MSNBC to CNN to Apple to Fox to, not Fox, but to Facebook and Twitter, and all of them are pressing out this agenda that's lying to us and claiming to be the only source of truth. And so what's happening is, it's good when you keep getting paused. You're onto something when it's like, nope. I also think that we're in this huge moment of social change that is also happening organically. I think that the racial tensions in America, they ebb and flow, and I think there is systematic pressure points that I think that more than racism, there's a classism in our country where if you are within a certain tier, that you are always kept in that tier. And I think a lot of things, and I think at some point I will have enough information and enough confidence to talk about it here on the Chautauqua, because this is a safe place to start those kinds of conversations. And last summer, with my friends Reggie and Ryan, we were able to come. I was thinking of their first and last names, and so my computer broke down for a second. We were able to come and have an uncomfortable conversation, and we'll have more of those. But in lieu of that, in lieu of all of the double talk that's happening, I want to read you guys a poem. Let me get some water real quick. Hold on. All right. Because what we're doing here on Instagram Live is rock and roll. It reminds me of pirate radio, the things I read and heard. It reminds me of the beatnik poetry in the 50s and the late 40s. These voices that are unregulated, and that's rock and roll. And it's also very dangerous. So know that through art, music, poetry, stories, we can change the world for good. And there's this community, and the whole purpose of the Polaha Chautauqua, I want to excite and ignite you guys to be warriors of light, so that you can take these weapons that you're getting from me, that are these pacifist weapons, and move into the world and start spreading kingdom living. That's the purpose. Every time I jump on Sundays with the Polaha Chautauqua, it is to excite people with love, hope, faith, joy, grace, mercy, kindness, peacefulness. This idea that we can move into the world and stop the insanity. Like the Susan Powders from the 1990s when she had her little workout thing. Stop the insanity. We can stop the insanity. I want to read you a poem today by a man named Bob Kaufman. Bob Kaufman was the son of a Jewish man and a black Catholic from New Orleans. And he started a magazine with Allen Ginsberg. He was a beatnik. And it's his birthday today. And his poem is called Believe, Believe. Believe in this, young apple seeds and blue skies radiating young breast, not in blue-suited insects infesting society's garments. Believe in the swinging sounds of jazz, tearing the night into intricate shreds, putting it back together again in cool, logical patterns, not in the sick controllers who created only the bomb. Let the voices of dead poets ring louder in your ears than the screeching mouthed in mildewed editorials. Listen to the music of centuries rising above the mushroom time. Louder than the mildewed editorials. Be careful what you watch. Be careful what you read. Be careful what you listen to. I was talking with Anna today. I'm not clumping all journalists in the same pot. It's unfair to local journalists who are reporting factual information for the communities they serve. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And that's why there are two sides to every coin. And that is why we're talking about grace today, because we cannot blanket any conversation with just black and white, left and right. You're absolutely right. Just like last week, there was two sides to the story. There's two sides to this story. And that's why we're talking about grace. I cut myself off with that point because I had to, because it was essential. Regardless of what kind of journalist you are, or what kind of news you're watching, we as a society have to protect ourselves. And I know what I was going to say, which is this. Anna and I did a little interview today for our book. And it reminded me of something that I used to say on the press circuit for Where Hope Grows, which was a really sweet movie I did, directed by Chris Dowling, starring David DeSanctis and I, and Brooke Burns, and it's a great little movie. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But in it, I was saying, during this whole press circuit, I was saying, if all you eat is fast food, if all you eat is McDonald's, you're going to get diabetes, you're going to have a heart attack, you're going to get sick, you're going to die. Like, it's going to make you sick. And the truth of that is that it's also true for what we put into our brains with the things that we read, the things that we watch, and the things that we listen to. So if you're reading only horror and thrillers and smut, and you're only watching, your one station of Fox News or CNN News, and you're only getting that one bit of programming in, and you're only watching one channel, you're gonna have, your diet is lopsided. So you have to go out and you have to watch PBS, and you have to look at all of the different local newses, look at CNN, look at Fox, source it both ways, and then turn it off. Turn it off for a week, and don't worry about the things that are coming in to grab your attention. Because there's only so much that we can take in until we start to get confused. And I also have to say about social media, there are so many beautiful things about this place, but it is also dangerous. Like I said last week, it's like wading into the ocean. There are sharks in the water. There are jellyfish that will sting and spikes that will prick. And it's dangerous. So be careful where you wander with your mind through our society. To that, does anybody have George Orwell's 1984? If somebody has it out there, could you get it off your bookshelf, and will you open it up? And I want you to read just the opening paragraph about Oceania and the differences. Let me know when you have a copy of it, if you get a copy of it. Okay? I'm going to move into grace. 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 Grace, as defined by Webster's Dictionary. Simple elegance or refinement of movement. I had an acting teacher in NYU, and she said that genius is a conservation of energy. To be able to express yourself on stage with the least amount of movement and the least amount of effort shows like true excellence in your craft. And I think that when you have a conservation of movement, if you just mold that into a refinement of movement, then all of a sudden we're tapping into the definition of grace. Hi, Kelly Schultz. Welcome to the Polaha Chautauqua. Happy that you're joining us live. So, grace, defined as a noun with simple elegance or refinement of movement, courteous goodwill. Hello, good to you. It's a short prayer of thanks said before or after a meal. Let's say some grace. Huh? The blessing. What's that from? Used as forms of description or address for a duke, a duchess, or an archbishop. So my old friend Meghan Markle, you can call her your grace. In Greek, 3 beautiful goddesses were the graces. Let me massacre these names for you. Agalia, Thalia, and Euphrosyne, believed to personify and bestow charm, grace, and beauty. So the 3 graces. Grace is a period officially allowed for a payment of a sum due or for compliance with a law or condition, especially an extended period granted as a special favor. That's one I want you to hear. Definition. One definition. As a verb, you can do honor or you could credit someone by one's presence. That's another way to have grace. He graced us. She graced us with her presence on the Polaha Chautauqua today. And here in the dictionary, right here, you can look it up. It says, in Christian belief, so in the Christian narrative, grace is the free and unmerited favor of God as manifested in the salvation of sinners and the bestowal of blessings. If you really dig into grace, that when Jesus died on that cross, which goes back to this little drawing of mine, that when Jesus did this, it was an act of grace and mercy that was free for us. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing that we have to work for. We can't earn it. We can't buy it. We can't status up and level up. We can't have 8 million followers and then have grace. We can't. Carrie has 1984. I'm going to have you read that passage for a second. We cannot buy, earn, work for. We can't do anything but get given grace. God gives us grace. We can give each other grace. So, in as much as we were talking about forgiveness, because that is a huge first step, and as much as we were talking about the fruits of the Spirit, I want to start unpacking. Today, we're going to start unpacking it, but it's not just going to be a one and done Polaha Chautauqua. We'll keep talking about grace and this idea of grace, because it is something that is so... Am I back? It's something that is so essential in human interaction that without grace, we will devolve. We'll devolve without grace. So that's kind of where I'm at today. That's kind of what I wanted to talk to you guys about. And I'm going to see if my friend Gail is on. She is. Because I wanted her to talk about it with me. Hang on a second. Hi, Gail.
Hi. Hey, Chris.
How are you, sister?
I'm good. How are you, brother?
I'm good. It's nice to see you. It's been a while.
I know it has been a while.
I have really terrible Wi-Fi where I'm in my hotel room. I've called down to the front office about 7 times. They offered me a free pay-per-view movie because it's been such an inconvenience. So if you freeze, or if I freeze, or if this is the big glitchy episode of the Polaha Chautauqua, have grace with me. Just show me a little grace. And
I will show you plenty of grace.
all right. I was hoping that you would have something to add from a biblical point of view, because I'm up here without a lot of resources. I have my Bible with me, and I jumped into the computer and I started trying to look up different places and passages to read. But I thought all of a sudden I was overwhelmed, and I said, you know what? Gail will have more that I can offer. So what would you have to offer on the subject of grace?
Well, a couple things. First, I think it's important we understand that there's a difference between mercy and grace. Mercy is when you don't give something what they deserve. But grace is giving something they don't deserve.
I like that. Okay. Can you say that again?
So, yeah. So mercy is not giving you what you really deserve, right?
Right.
Let's say that you keep leaving your clothes laying on the floor constantly. It's driving Julianne crazy. Well, she's extending mercy when she doesn't smack you upside the head and tell you
Why are you making it
put your dirty
personal?
clothes away.
Right. Now, what is
Okay?
grace? Okay.
But
Grace.
grace is giving you something that you didn't deserve.
So when she just goes behind me and cleans up the clothes and then doesn't even say anything about it,
That's grace.
that's grace.
That's grace. And there's a difference. And I think it's important that we understand that there's a difference because, particularly when we're receiving it from God, we need to understand the context.
Right.
When it comes to God, who, by the way, in First Peter is referred to as the God of all grace. So if you're looking for the source of grace, God's where you're going to go to. And so when you're thinking about mercy and grace that God extends to us, his mercy is not giving us what we deserve. We deserve punishment because we're sinners. But yet he gave us mercy and didn't give us that punishment. Instead, Jesus took it upon himself.
I'm going to pause you.
Are you with me? I can't tell if I'm breaking up.
Can you hear me?
I hear you coming in and out.
Oh, boy.
Okay. There you are.
Okay. What I wanted to talk about, too, was exactly that point. When a non-Christian hears the word sinner, they automatically think, oh, you're bad, sin, sin, sin. And a Christian, and it depends on if you grow up, like I grew up Catholic, and there's a lot of guilt associated with sin, and you feel and you have to go and repent. There's all the things that we do with sin. Sin has a very heavy connotation. But to strip it away from the humanity of understanding sin and what that is, the idea is that we are all, there's something broken in all of us.
That's
and
right.
It's just a simple matter of fact. And it could be pride, it could be lust, it could be an addiction to something, it can be anger and wrath, it can be envy. There are things in this world that we all get tripped up on. And that is sin. Like, that is the imperfection. And what happens when you start, we should also do a Polaha Chautauqua on sin, what that means, what that looks like. That's a whole hour into of itself. But anything that separates you and your relationship from God and from others is a sin. Anything that opens the channels to God and to other people, that's love. That's the right thing. So there's the right thing and there's the broken thing. So when we talk about sin, so when you say that we're all sin, and when you say we're all deserving of punishment based on that, the truth of the matter is we've all done stuff that if you were to put us up in front of a judge and jury, they'd be like, you're guilty. You got to go and so we're talking about this idea that we're extended mercy by not being punished, and then we're given grace. So continue. Sorry, I just wanted to share that because I think all of us have gone through stuff, and we feel like sometimes when you do sin, you feel unworthy for the grace, and you feel unworthy, like you want your punishment, and so you punish yourself for a long time versus just letting it go and feeling God's grace and feeling that forgiveness and moving into mercy. And grace. Carry on.
Yes. Well, so grace, first of all, then what grace God gives us is giving us the opportunity to have the forgiveness and to have the eternal life with him. And so that's that difference between mercy and grace. And God's grace is so big. Remember, I said he's the God of all grace. His grace is bigger than any sin you could ever have. I don't care what you've done. Whether you've told a lie, whether you've gotten drunk somewhere, whether you've killed somebody, like whatever you've done, his grace is bigger than that.
Wow. Yeah.
And so it will extend and it will cover over that. But you have to bring it to him. to do that. And I guess one other quick point about sin, and you're right, we should probably talk about this in more detail at some point, but um, you know, God is holy. He is completely perfect. He is without flaw. And so when we say we've sinned, we've done something that has caused a divide between us. And in his holiness, he can't just gloss over that. Otherwise, he would no longer be holy and be righteous. That's why he needs something. He needs recompense. And so then that gets into that whole discussion of forgiveness and Jesus taking that upon us. But I know that's a lot deeper than we're talking
No,
today.
like, we're here in union with God, and the minute we sin, we step away, and God can't
Yeah.
he can't do that, but there's a way that he can get us to do this again. And that
Right.
is,
Exactly.
I mean, that's Jesus. That's where that forgiveness
That's
comes
right.
in. And that's why the cross, I mean, it's literally, it's like, the chasm is closed. The idea that Jesus laid his
Absolutely.
life down for us.
Absolutely. Yes. Because when God first created man, he lived in community with man. That was him living with Adam and Eve. But when he gave them free will and the ability to make choices and they made bad choices, then that is where that sin came in. And so ever since then, there's been this gap. And there's nothing we can say or do or think, or nothing we can buy, nothing. We have no recourse to close that gap. The only way that gap gets closed is through Jesus. That's what scripture tells us. That's what we as Christians believe.
Yeah.
And so grace is a huge concept in the Christian narrative, particularly when you get into the New Testament. Grace is so important. And again, we talk about God being the God of all grace. Well, Jesus is referred to in 1 John as being full of grace and truth. And like you were talking earlier, what do we need right now in our world? We need grace and we need truth. Well, if he's full of it, then that tells me we need more Jesus. That's what's telling me.
Yeah. Yeah. Me
Right?
too.
And I understand there's folks out there that may not believe in the Christian narrative, and I just want to express to them that God loves them, and that if they have questions about this, there are so many resources out there to go seek. You seek and you will find.
Yeah.
And God promises us that when we seek him with all his heart, we will find him. So I hate to like get into these deep things and then kind of leave people hanging, but there are resources out there, churches and such, where you can connect to learn more about that. And we'll talk more about it as time goes on.
I mean, my thing is, I think the biggest thing I could offer people is that I think that there have been so many institutions and people who've gotten in the way. Like I keep
Yes. Yes.
in the church. I was abused, and I think there's a lot of people who were hurt. But one of the things that I never did until I got older was just read the Bible. And one thing that anybody can do, whether or not you believe in the Christian narrative, whether you're Buddhist, Jewish, Muslim, atheist, you can read the Bible because it's a book. It's a book of
Right.
stories that you can either believe are true or not.
Right.
But
Right.
it's the most amazing source of wisdom on the planet, and it's ancient. And no matter who you are, you can go to Kierkegaard, you can go to Buber, you can go to all these great philosophers. Everybody keeps drawing Shakespeare. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
keeps drawing their source out of the Bible. And
Right.
and the biggest resource that you could go to is just pick up, and the Message is the one that I do with the Eugene what's his
Peterson.
name? The one, Eugene H. Peterson did a translation. It's the Bible in contemporary language. It's called The Message. And it makes it easy to read. And I
Yeah.
wonder, like, if people just sat back, and yeah, of course, there was this thing I posted on the Polaha Chautauqua, whatever your matrix is set for, you'll
Mm-hmm.
notice the things, like if you want to see a conspiracy and you believe that, that
Right.
that mice are actually running the world, you could start finding, when the mouse takes the pizza, you're going to be like, wait a minute, mice are running the world. So you can you could justify anything that you want. But I also think that this is a living book. And
Yeah.
I believe that the Holy Spirit is activated in this. And when you read it, things start to happen, man. And your mind gets open in a way. And I'll go back and I'll read a passage and I'll see it differently than I did 10 years ago. And I'll go
Right.
again and I just keep, and there's something that keeps flowering and there's wisdom in it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it is alive. And there is life in that. And you know, one of the other things about scripture, particularly in the New Testament, if you'll notice, Paul, who wrote most of the New Testament, and Peter and John, all these men, when they write these letters to the churches, because that's what really a lot of the New Testament is, are letters that those guys wrote to the churches to encourage them to, in their faith in Jesus and to keep growing the church. They always either start or they finish the letter with the phrase grace and peace to you. Grace first and peace to you. And notice they don't say safety to you or much wealth to you
Right.
or
Good.
happiness to you
Right. Right.
or even good health to you.
Yeah.
They say grace and peace to you. And that is so important because, first of all, it brings your mind back around to who is the source of grace, that is God. But also, it's this gentle reminder of the grace you have received and the grace you then extend to others.
Yeah.
Right? So, grace and peace to you. I'm giving you grace and peace. And then that grace and peace you have, you then extend to other people as you can. But that was so important to them that they put it in every letter. They didn't say, we hope you stay safe. They didn't say, we hope you stay fed. They didn't say, we hope you get rich. They said, grace and peace to you.
It's important.
And that's really important.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
really important.
I think that this is going to be just the beginning of a little series on grace. And so we will continue to dive deep because I want to get some scriptural backup on it. And I want to, I was looking at it. It's interesting. I did a quick deep dive today. Buddhism has this approach on grace. In Hinduism, there's an approach on grace. In the Muslim faith, I mean, it's interesting that every religion talks about this idea of, and you're right, it's not mercy.
Right.
It's this undeserved gift that we
Yes.
have a choice to accept or not accept. And
to extend or not extend.
to extend or not extend, because that's where we have grace with each other.
Yeah. And it's not just in our actions, it's also in our words.
Yeah.
You know, it was funny that this was your topic because I get a little verse every day on my Bible app. And today's verse came from Proverbs 16:24, and it said, gracious words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul and health to the body. Gracious words do that. Words filled with grace.
Awesome.
So when you accept the grace that God has given you, your ability to then speak grace, even when the other person may not deserve it, right? Because that's the whole point of grace. They don't deserve it, but you've given it to them anyway.
You know, I have this theory that God made every single human being. He did, right? Every single human being on the planet.
Sure.
Because God is God, he can experience every single experience that every single human is going through instantaneously. So from the movie star, which I got to be honest with you, being in the public eye and feeling adoration and feeling praise and feeling celebrated, I have a feeling that God shows a few people on earth what it's going to feel like in heaven for everybody. Because it's undeserved. Like for 20 years, I had a really hard time with any time somebody was like, oh, it's like you make a big deal out of somebody and it's a weird feeling. But it hit me the other day where it's like, no, this is just, I just want to show you, like, you're getting a taste of what it's going to be like for everybody. Everyone's going to feel this overwhelming sense of belonging and love and adoration. And the idea that God can do anything. He could do anything. We know that. But there's a matrix set in place. And the matrix is us. It's each other. And I think the whole point of this Polaha Chautauqua is, to your point, we are here for a purpose. And that purpose is to either extend grace and drops of honey. My father-in-law wrote this little booklet, Drops of Honey, for his employees. And it was to encourage people, like, and we can either do Max F. Morris, Drops of Honey. You can Google them or whatever. But it's this beautiful idea of this idea of encouraging one another and being God for God on earth, like doing the work,
Being his ambassador.
Being his ambassadors. Yes. I don't want people saying, wait, we're God on earth. We're little gods. It's not being demigods. No, it's being the hands and the feet and the mouth and the eyes and the pocketbooks of God here on earth for each other. Of course he could do anything. Of course he could lift any veil and he could change any situation, and miracles happen, and we should leave room for miracles and wonders. Absolutely. But in the meantime, it's each other. And that's what relationships are. And that's what this whole thing's about, is to remind people that, yeah, while it's terrifying outside, and if you look at the news, you're going to be just terrified. But there's another side of that coin, which is you could also go outside and love somebody, and it's instantaneous. Like you've done something, a random act of kindness, and just seen instantly when you just,
of course,
give somebody $5 or buy the coffee behind you or whatever the thing is.
Right.
How quickly it changes.
Yes.
Or just say, you look nice today, Gail. You look nice.
Thank you.
And we celebrate you. Yay, we'll make you feel like that. You're always awesome to have on this show, and you were my lifeline today. I literally was like, oh, I'm going to have Gail come on. Because I'm in Vancouver. I'm on a quarantine, and I've been writing, and I've been doing this whole crazy thing, and my whole day kind of crunched up, and before I knew it, it was 3 o'clock, and I was like, oh man, I got to get ready for and then at 3:50 my son called, and he said, I don't think I want to take pre-calculus next year. And we were literally having a conversation. I was like, at 4 o'clock, I was like, I'm sorry, baby, let me do this thing, and I'll jump on with you in a second. So I knew I could count on you, and I could, and I appreciate it. So thank you.
No, sure, anytime.
All right, and maybe we'll talk about a little battle plan when we talk about grace again. Maybe we'll pick it up and do it again next week. Sound good?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Do you mind? I still don't know why Instagram won't give me the authority to say goodbye to people.
I'll do it. Okay, right, bye.
Bye, Gail. Does anybody know how to fix this while we're talking? So Carrie Bo, we're not gonna do the Orson Welles thing because the hours kind of moved on. But I appreciate you grabbing your copy, and maybe we can start with it next week. It's so crazy that I can't say goodbye to people. I'm gonna wrap it up today. We're gonna do a little shorter Chautauqua, but I just want to end with a song. Tell him to take pre-calculus. That's so funny. Why, Lisa? Why? Give me the reason why. I can't. Hey Neil, how are you, brother? The problem is I can't say goodbye to people, so I gotta figure that out. Instagram has taken away my ability to X people off. Oh yeah, I know. Okay, so this is a song called Grace. It's by U2. It's written by Adam Clayton, Dave Evan, who is The Edge, Larry Mullen, and Paul Hewson, who is Bono. And I'm just going to kind of sing it to you guys so that you can just hear it and enjoy the words, okay? It goes like this. Grace, she takes the blame. She covers the shame, removes the stain. It could be her name, Grace. It's a name for a girl. It's also a thought that can change the world. And when she walks down the street, You can hear the strings, and grace finds goodness in everything. Grace, she got the walk, not on a ramp or on chalk. She's got the time to talk. She travels outside of karma, karma. She travels outside of karma. And when she goes to work, you can hear her strings. And grace finds beauty in everything. Grace, she carries a world on her hips. No champagne flute for her lips, no twirls or skips between her fingertips. She carries a pearl in perfect condition. What once was hurt, what once was friction, what left a mark no longer stings. Because grace finds beauty out of ugly things. Grace finds beauty in everything. Grace finds goodness in everything.